Once the actor and writer Robert Benchley went to his bank to take out a loan, and he was horrified when the bank gave him the loan immediately and without question. He promptly closed his account, saying, "I don't trust any bank that would loan money to such a poor risk as me." Life is filled with risks, and sometimes you have to take those risks. Sometimes it seems the older we get, the riskier life becomes. Today we hear of another very risky situation. We hear of the apostles out in a boat on a dark, stormy night. The wind and the waves were tossing them about. They were at risk. They were frightened. Then they saw Jesus coming, walking right on the water towards them. And they became even more terrified, thinking it must be a ghost. But Peter was bold enough to say, "Lord, if you call me, I too will walk on the water, and I will go to you." Jesus called him, and Peter too walked on the water. A terrible risk for a fisherman to take, to leave the boat, to go into the turbulent water at night. But Peter took that risk because he saw Jesus there. And he knew that if Jesus could do it, well, so could he. He did not think of the water beneath his feet. He only thought of the friend before his eyes. Now, of course, we know the rest of the story. Peter began to be afraid, began to doubt. And it was when he felt his first doubts and his first fears that he began to sink. Now, poor Peter gets a bum rap for that. We always remember him as the person who doubted, just as we remember Thomas as doubting Thomas. They were filled with faith. Peter's faith was far greater than that of the others in the boat. The others remained huddled in fear. Peter was the one who was bold enough to go into the turbulent water. It wasn't until he looked down at the water. It wasn't until he looked down at the danger. It wasn't until he looked down at his feet and decided that those feet were not meant to walk on water that he began to sink. Until then, even if only for a moment, Peter walked on water. That is something truly astounding. Because he was willing to get out of the boat, he walked on water. A very insightful Presbyterian minister of our day, John Ortberg, has written a very insightful book called "If You Want to Walk on Water, You've Got to Get Out of the Boat." I like that idea. 21st century America is obsessed with security, obsessed with safety. We want complete safety for our children in the schools, of course. We want complete safety for ourselves on the streets and at the workplace. That's all very natural, of course, and very, very good. But we have perhaps taken it to extremes. And you will notice that every time you go to an airport. And you will certainly notice it every time you try to construct something and get the proper permits for it. We have become obsessed with security as never before in the history of the planet. And yet, life is filled with many, many risks. Leaving the boat is risky. Going into turbulent waters is risky. Going against the current is risky. But it is only then that we have a chance of walking on water. Who would ever wish to walk on water? Most of us have a hard enough time walking on dry land. And the older we become, the more difficulty we have walking on that dry land. Not long ago, I myself fell down for the first time in years. We fall. Why would we want to walk on water? Well, I don't know about you, but ever since I was a child, I have had recurring dreams of flying. In my dreams, sometimes I am treading the air, just like I would be treading water, and my feet are not touching the ground. It seems to me so natural until I wake up. When I wake up, I'm so surprised that I'm not able to tread air like I can tread water. We can do things in dreams because there are no inhibitions there. No one to tell us what is possible and what is not. When we are awake, we prefer safety. But as the old saying goes, a ship in a harbor is safe, but that's not what ships are built for. We can live our entire life in a harbor. We can live our entire life huddled in fear like those other 11 disciples in the boat, without ever daring to take the risk of stepping out into the sea, without ever daring to take the risk of leaving the boat. Sometimes we should, I suppose, be afraid to take a breath of air for fear that some germs will enter our lungs. We'll see how far we get holding our breath our entire life. We can do it, but the life will be rather short. Life is worth taking risks. In order to walk on water, we have to get out of the boat. Now, we don't have to take risks to show off with daredevil feats like Evel Knievel or a circus acrobat on a tightrope. I myself am not the least bit tempted to go bungee jumping. But like Peter, when we are face to face with something and someone greater, when we hear God calling us to something beyond our comfort zone, to something extraordinary, to something heroic or prophetic, then it is worthwhile to get out of the boat, to enter those choppy waters, and we will find that we too are walking on water. And yes, like Peter, we too might begin to sink and fall whenever we start to fear. but someone is there to take us by the hand. Oh, those 11 other disciples huddled in the boat made it safely to the other shore as well. But it was only Peter who did the extraordinary. Only Peter who walked on water, because it was only Peter who was bold enough to get out of the boat. Sometimes we are called to get out of the boat. Sometimes we are called to dare to think not like the other people around us are thinking. Sometimes we are called to be different. Those people who are called to get out of the boat are the extraordinary ones. They are the saints. They are the mystics. They are the prophets. They are the reformers. They are perhaps, like Peter, the leaders. They dared. As the great Canadian hockey player Wayne Gretzky so wisely said, "You always miss 100% of the shots you don't take." Let's take those shots during life. Let's listen for the voice in the storm. It just might be calling our name. Let's take God by the hand so that we can take life by the horns. Let's not be afraid to get out of the boat, to walk on the water. Throughout our life, many storms come our way when we find the waters very, very choppy around us. The secret is not to wish the storms to go away, but to dare to get out of the boat and walk calmly, trustingly, fearlessly across those choppy waters. Let us heed the warning of the great Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard. To dare is to lose one's footing momentarily. Not to dare is to lose one's self. Let us not lose ourselves by refusing to dare, by refusing to heed the call to step out sometimes from that boat. Let us dare to be Peters, dare to dream, dare to be different, dare to live, dare to be ourselves, and let us, like Peter, dare to get out of that boat and to find ourselves walking on water.